right, so it's 6:05. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you're new here, welcome. You know that we run these insight events periodically with our corporate partners and professionals to gain more insight into various different industries across finance, technology, and professional services. And if you're not new here, you know that this is exactly what we do. And we're super pleased to welcome Federated Hermes, who are essentially going to be running this session today ahead of their internship program for a number of roles this summer. And we're super excited. This is due to be a very informative session. And we have an unprecedented thing that we're doing this week where we have insight sessions over 2 days to learn about all the various different opportunities within Federated Hermes. We have Owen, two Owens, Owen from ESG, who's going to be talking through the ESG engagement role. And then we also have Owen from the finance team as well, who's going to be talking through the corporate finance role as well. And of course, the person that made this happen, Rachel, from the talent development team, who's going to be talking about the overall structure of the internship program and what you guys should expect as far as the application process goes and actually starting the internship if you are successful as well. As you guys know, be sure to drop your questions as we're presenting, and I'll be sure to kind of position them as and when it's appropriate to do so. A replay of this session will be available for members as well, so be sure to sign up to our website to access all of that along with the presentation as well. And then I'll also share the sign up link for tomorrow's session to learn about the fixed income US equities and sustainable fixed income roles as well that are available. But with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel and the team.
Thanks, Stephen. And sorry, everyone, for you seeing my screen flicking back and forth. I've had some tech issues today, so I'm hoping that's the end of it and we're done. So I'm going to be controlling the presentation, so you have to hold out on me. But thank you for the amazing introduction, Stephen. So I'm Rachel, and I am the Talent Development Associate here at Federated Hermes. And I'm going to be, as Stephen said, giving you an overview of the programme, tiny incy bit about Federated Hermes. I will leave the majority of the background and the context for the role to Owen and Owen. It's not my area of expertise. I'm not an investment specialist, but I can certainly help answer any questions you have about the programme itself. So depending on where you are, how much you know about investment, first thing to know about us is that we are active, responsible investment firm. So our mission statement is to create long-term wealth. As you can see, as I've put in bold, we operate in public and private markets, and we incorporate that responsibility into all of our management strategies across all of our funds. So the history of our firm, we were founded in 1983, so we're about 40 years old, and that was originally founded under BT Pension Scheme, so that was British Telecom Pension Scheme, and then that managed the Post Office Pension Fund as well. We became Hermes Fund Managers, which is our old legal entity. So if you look us up on the internet, you might find some references to Hermes Fund Management. That was our previous legal entity, and that was founded in 1998. And then we were acquired by our grandparent organisation, Federated, in 2020. So that's why you can see our employee numbers are close to 2,000. We have about 1,500 of those based in the US, and that's our grandparent company. And we're still a big team here in the UK. We're about 400 to 500 in London. And then we have other offices all across Europe, Singapore, New York. And I think I've probably missed out Australia and maybe a couple of others, but that covers the base of us. Just one thing, if you're going to take away anything from today and you're new to investment management, start by looking at what an active fund manager is. Look at that, understand what a responsible investment means. I would definitely have a look at things like greenwashing. That's something that you'll see coming up quite a lot in this space, and definitely understanding what a public and private market is will really help you. I'm just going to play you a short clip just to summarize some of what I've just shared. And I'm hoping, hang on, let me just check really quick. Oh, okay, I'm sharing the sound. I'll pause it there. Oh. So just onto the program itself. So for candidates that are successful, you'll be joining us for a 10-week period starting from the 3rd of July. I've summarized some of the activities that you'll be doing. So you'll have a group project that you'll be working on throughout the program. So you'll have the opportunity to build connections, network with the people joining the internship at the same time. You'll be part of our student ambassador program, which will be something that we're founding for the first time. So you will be our legacy alumni. And then we'll be hosting lots of lunch and learns for you to network and learn from area professionals. I've summarized some other things here, but we've got CV and interview skills workshops. So we hope that you'll take away some practical skills that you can take forward to the rest of your career. And we've got a corporate social responsibility offsite that we're organising. So for those of you that don't know what corporate social responsibility means, you can have a quick look on the internet if you fancy. But essentially, it's volunteering work that we do to help wider society. So we're currently working with Shelter this year, so it will be a volunteering activity to support that charity. We have company summer socials. So sometimes that means we go to an event. So we went to Bank a couple of years ago. So that was pre-COVID. And we had lots of nice food, lots of nice drinks and activities to do. And then we have training days as well. So we'll connect you with CFA training providers. So for those of you that don't know who the CFA are, they do a lot of the exam bodies for investment professionals. So you'll get to learn from the people in the know who affect the syllabus and all the training that goes on for investment professionals. And you'll get the chance to network with employee groups. So we have tons and tons of employee-led networks. We have the multi-generation network, gender network, disability network. So anything that you're interested in learning more about for your time here, you have the opportunity to get involved with that too. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand over to Owen Stubbs, who's just going to give you a bit more information about HGPE finance.
Hey all, thanks Rachel. So yeah, I'm Owen Stubbs. I've been with Hermes GP for about 1.5 years now. So yeah, in our London office, really enjoying the role so far. And you know, it's definitely a great company to work for from my side. In terms of a bit of a background about HGPE, it's a separate legal entity which is 100% owned by Federated Hermes Group. There's about 50 people that work just for HGPE. That's our abbreviation for Hermes GPE. So about 8 of those work in the US and then about same in Singapore. So HGPE as an asset manager invests both in private markets, but invests solely in private markets, but invests in both private equity and infrastructure with about 9 billion of assets under management. Again, probably all terms you'll probably want to look up online if you don't know those already. But we have dedicated private equity and infrastructure investment teams who work in the UK and manage our investments for us, as well as finance, legal and tax teams here in London, of which I'm part of the finance team. So the Federated Group obviously has standalone finance functions, but the Hermes GPE Group finance is standalone from that. So we only look after the Hermes GPE entity and then our 80 corporate entities, which are domiciled in the US, Singapore, Channel Islands, Luxembourg. Basically, if you've got a entity there. And that's important for our group structure to ensure we're complying with all legal worldwide regulations, essentially. So when I talk about the HGP group, we're talking about the operating entities which receive management fees from our underlying investments and which pay all of our operational costs, such as salaries, bonuses, rent, all those sort of operating costs for our 3 offices, which are in London, New York, and Singapore. So yeah, there's eight staff in the corporate finance team in London, so we're quite a lean team. But yeah, we managed to cover off all of our responsibilities quite well, and we've got a good vibe in the team. It's a really broad corporate finance role, I would say. you get the phrase, every day might genuinely be different, but it actually is. There's there's so many different responsibilities to take care of, and you could be coming in the morning, taking care of your normal responsibilities, and then at the same time also having to deal with some unforeseen ad hoc requests from someone, preparing some new data. So there is genuinely a lot of variety in the role. Obviously, with our core deliverables here, we have our accounting and operations. So obviously the role is broadly a accounting role. So if you've got any background or any interest at all in accountancy or finance, then this is quite a good internship role. You'll be exposed to a broad variety of accounting transactions and corporate entity structure. So for example, we've got a number of entities registered in Guernsey and Jersey, in Singapore, US, Luxembourg, which is a necessary part of the corporate finance structure in order for our management fees to be paid up to our operating company. And then, so we have also our financial reporting and regulatory compliance. Obviously, having a lot of entities in a lot of jurisdictions mean we need to process a lot of transactions, such as operating costs, revenue, all of our cash book transactions, and as well as our regulatory submissions. Obviously, complying with a lot of worldwide regulations means that we have a lot of different regulatory returns. The regulators are generally bodies who look after the regulation of finance companies, who basically make sure that everyone is complying with all the rules. Obviously, compliance with rules is a very big part of the finance function in general. Then also we have our financial planning and analysis functions, where we will forecast our costs, revenue for the next 3 years, for example, as part of our cash flow and forecasting planning. We'll also be reporting to the board every month for our management accounts. So management accounts are internal accounts, which we'll send over to our board for review. It's really important that we prepare this document in a very efficient and clearly to understand way, because this enables our board to make good financial decisions for Hermes GP Group. So we also have here a typical day-to-day, I would say, maybe 70% of the time is periodic reporting and control functions. So our accounting operations and financial reporting and regulatory compliance obviously forms a big part of the role, as well as then the ad hoc time, which will be requests from a legal team, our tax team, the investment teams, for any ad hoc requests as they come in. Which to list off the types of requests that we get, which would be here all day. But suffice to say, we'll be we look after a lot of different functions here in the role. So I suppose maybe if we go to the next slide, Rachel. So this is just a bit more of a breakdown of what each of our accounting operations, financial reporting and financial planning involves. But if I was to take a look at sort of a day in the life of the finance corporate function in terms of our perhaps more of a case study function, it would be our consolidated accounts and annual audit. So I'm sure you've heard in the news, obviously audit is a really big deal these days. And indeed, going forward, it's a really important requirement for all companies that meet the requirements to be audited. It's important for our wider group team and external investors to know that the HGP group is obviously fully audited and complies with all relevant local guidelines, and then enables people such as external investors to make smart, informed decisions about the HGP group. So as a result, it's really important that our financial consolidated accounts and annual audit are completed in a very tight deadline. I'm sure a lot of you studying for your first year, second year, third year degrees know the importance of a tight deadline, and when you get into the working world, it's no exception. You've got a month deadline with our consolidated accounts, so we've got to be able to deal with multiple requests from auditors and from management on a pretty much daily basis. Which, yeah, it's an interesting juggling of various different balls. You know, you've got to try and juggle your normal responsibilities as well as our ad hoc requests as well. And I would say that the finance role, when looking at the consolidated accounts, is attention to detail is incredibly important. You know, the first thing you look at in the day has to be as important as the last thing you look at in the day, is my mantra, really, and the mantra for the successful intern for this role, really. You've got to have good attention to detail, that you're paying close attention to everything that you're doing, really, because everything matters. It's a very results driven role. You know, you're looking at a sign off, which is then backdate. You know, when you've got your audit sign off, you've got to focus on what do we need to do to get here, what results do we need to drive getting forward to that role. Obviously, good knowledge of accounting standards is definitely required for our consolidated accounts audit, which is where I would step in. Obviously, you know, the intern is not required to have any you know, accounting exams or anything, but I didn't. Obviously, I've done my exams a long time ago now, and I didn't do them for nothing, because the role really requires you to be, when you get further into the organization, you've got to have a good understanding of the accounting standards in order for you to be confident, really, in what you're doing, essentially, and what results you're giving to your wider organization. Definitely thinking on your feet, you know, ability to deal with a lot of different software. Obviously, we use Excel, we use our general ledger system, and you've got to be, you know, quickly able to assimilate a wide variety of information in the role. Problem solving. Obviously, the auditors will raise a wide variety of issues every year. It seems there's different issues which need to be discussed and communicated to whoever is in charge of that process, essentially, which usually involves me or the head of finance taking care of some of these responsibilities. And I would say that generally the annual accounts process, once it's done within the month, it shows that the hard work and effort you've put in actually does pay off in the end. You've got the finalized document, all the finalized reporting that goes out to investors and whoever else would want to view this, our annual accounts, which are obviously publicly available. So yeah, it's a very results driven role, and you'll see you get a good feeling at the end of it once you're finally finished with it. So I guess if you go to the last slide for my side, Rachel. Yeah, so if you want to succeed in the finance corporate team, I think obviously paying attention to everything I've spoken about so far, but definitely, yeah, you'll get a meaningful experience with specific financial applications. Obviously, our Excel and accounting software, controls and review processes. Obviously, our function relies on good controls, which I think is essentially confirming that all of our systems and operating process are working effectively in order to limit any errors. Any exposure to several different types of financial reports. Obviously, we have our financial statements. We've also got management accounts, as I've discussed, and our regulatory reporting. So there's definitely a wide variety of exposure in the role on a day-to-day basis to all of these aspects of the finance corporate role. Communication and collaboration skills, obviously very important for our team to be able to communicate to a wide variety of teams, legal, tax, investment team, wider group finance team as well. And definitely prioritizing work and meeting deadlines is a really key part of it. You want to be focusing on your most hard-hitting results first, and then meeting those deadlines quickly and effectively. Yeah, I think that's about it from my side. Hopefully that's given you a good broad understanding of the finance corporate role. Hopefully, yeah, it's an exciting opportunity, and yeah, definitely we'll obviously take questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Owen, for that. Really much appreciated. Rachel, I'm not sure if you want us to maybe cover some questions now or wait till the complete end to cover all the questions together.
Are you happy to answer questions now, Owen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do it
Might
now.
be fresh on people's minds.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go for it.
Let me just run through some of them. Thank you for that comprehensive overview as well, Owen. Definitely a very broad role to kind of sink your teeth in. Someone asked, would we also get exposure to fund accounting aside from the firm's accounting functions?
Yes, definitely. In terms of the fund accounting role, obviously we have our specific fund finance teams in both London and Guernsey and Jersey. So as part of our work, we have to review their work essentially. Obviously, I'm talking about the controls and review processes. That's part of the role. So yeah, we're looking at all of our revenue, for example, going up from the funds through our corporate structure up to our operating entity, HGP. We will review all that revenue work that they perform in order to recognize it at the group level. So the answer to the question is yes, but it's not part of the fund finance team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. So kind of like the corporate finance team is maintaining like an oversight
Definitely,
of
yeah.
fund accounting team is doing effectively. So you still have exposure
Yeah,
overall.
yeah.
Makes sense. Someone asked Tasneem, other than a sound understanding of financial terms and concepts, what else are you looking for within a candidate in this field at Hermes GPE? So I know you kind of like ran through that, but if you were to just distill it down to like the number one character trait you're looking for someone to be successful in this role, what would that be?
I'd say number one character trait is probably enthusiasm, because you've got to be a very enthusiastic person to come in the morning and be ready for, I'm not going to lie, it's hard work at times. But you've got to be enthusiastic to come in and just be ready to be exposed to a wide variety of things. So maybe enthusiastic and adaptable, if I can maybe pick two words. Definitely, all the team in London's really raring to go every day. So yeah, we're very enthusiastic, I would say.
Got you. Thank you for that. And then final question. This one's a bit of a meaty one, and I think we can wrap up to move on to the other Owen. In regards to the financial reporting and regulatory compliance deliverables, is there a legal team within the finance corporate team that deals with those regulatory compliance deliverables? And additionally, regarding tax compliance aspects, does the team heavily deal with tax advisory matters? So kind of like a twofold question, if you will.
Yeah, so obviously we work with our legal and tax colleagues in terms of sorting out the regulatory requirements. I suppose our legal and tax teams will come to us with queries regarding perhaps specific mechanisms in a partnership agreement, for example, in terms of the finance aspect of that. And any queries on items that they have relating to finance, if that makes sense. Obviously, we have responsibility for our financial reporting, like regulatory compliance from a financial perspective. But then it seems like every day I'm working on some sort of board paper which goes into a lot of detail on, for example, the legal and tax aspects as well. But just sort of condensing that into from a finance perspective, if that makes sense. So yeah, the answer to the question is yes, we do work with the legal and tax teams in order for the whole organization to meet its regulatory requirements.
Makes sense. Kind of just like a collaboration across teams to basically get it done for the regulators effectively.
Yep. Yeah.
Makes absolute sense. I think the rest of the questions are more so general, so we can maybe pass it on to Owen to progress with his portion, and then we can kind of ask it at the end if that's all right, Rachel.
Thank you very much. Happy to kick off now, Rachel, unless you want to do a bit of an intro.
No,
Great.
take it away.
Yeah, great, thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Owen Tutt and I'm an engager with EOS at Federated Hermes. It was great to see so many of you at the beginning saying that you're interested in ESG and what we do here at EOS. So hopefully today I'll give you a bit of background into actually what is, well, EOS, what is ESG? Then we've got terms like active ownership, stewardship, and engagement itself. So hopefully I'll clear all of that up for you. I'll give you a little bit of insight into what a day in my role looks like and what the day in the role of the successful intern would look like, and some more background as to what we ultimately trying to achieve here at EOS. And then I'll finish up with what ideally we are looking for in candidates and what it takes for someone to succeed in the team. So we are a leading stewardship service provider here at EOS. And what stewardship means is it means that once an investment decision has been made and our clients now own the stocks or bonds in a certain company, we're in charge of looking after that company. So we engage with them on environmental, social, and governance issues. So that's the ESG, to try and promote the long-term success of the company. And that's because we as a firm and also our external clients as well believe that for a company to be successful in the long term, they need to be managing their environmental risks, their social risks, and their governance risks. And those that do will be worth more in the long term and deliver better financial returns, as well as there being a more positive impact for society and the environment as well. So we provide this service internally to the funds managed by Federated Hermes Limited, but we also do it for third-party clients as well. And those clients are around the world, and they're institutional investors, and they employ EOS to do this engagement with companies on their behalf. So then when I say engagement, what does that mean in practice? Well, that's meeting with companies at the executive level, so the CEO, CFO, Chief Sustainability Officer, or sometimes the board of directors as well. Or when we're going deep on an issue, we might meet with certain members of the sustainability team as well to find out more about what the company is doing. And we're there for two reasons. One is to understand more about what the company is doing. We will have done lots of research to understand what the company has told us already online, in their reporting, maybe at previous events that they've held, but we want to go into more detail for our clients. And so we meet with the companies and we ask them questions and report that back to our clients. But the main reason that we're there is to influence them. We believe that companies that outperform their peers on ESG issues will outperform financially over the long term. And so I'm there in the meeting to try and suggest and influence companies to adopt better practices from an ESG perspective. Now, that can mean multiple things, and the diagram in the right here shows sort of all of those components of what stewardship is. There's that engagement, which is really the meeting. There's voting as well. Voting is when we make recommendations for our clients to vote a certain way at the annual general meeting of a company. So this is where they'll put directors up for re-election. They might have votes on how much the CEO should be paid that year. There'll be various other votes, perhaps shareholder resolutions, where certain shareholders are suggesting that a company does something, and we'll recommend to our clients whether that deserves support or doesn't deserve support. Then there's a little bit of public policy work as well, which is about influencing the policies that all companies must respond to, and giving our feedback and expertise to policymakers who are making the rules and regulations. Then there's also some advisory work, although that's a little bit smaller. So that's EOS as a whole, and the big 1.34 trillion that's on the screen, that represents the total number of assets that we do this for. And that's a great number for us, because that means we often represent assets that are a high proportion of the total company's market cap. So we have a big voice at the table often, and tend to get very good access and influence with the companies that we speak to. Could we go to the next slide, Rachel? Thank you. So that's the work we do. What do we look like as a team? Well, we're incredibly diverse. We're engaging with companies all around the world. And so we have a huge breadth of diversity in nationality, language, but also background and professional expertise. So the EOS team are made up of people with 18 different nationalities, 17 languages spoken. I'm just one language, so I'm definitely not helping the side there. And in terms of industry experience, people come from all over. There are people who've come straight out of university and join the team with particular expertise in one of the areas that we focus on. Others have come from a career in law, accountancy, been an academic themselves, have been inside companies, helping them develop their sustainability strategies, and then come to work with us on the investor side. So there's huge breadth within the team, and that's definitely one of the things that I value most, is working with highly experienced people from every walk of life. Really. And I think we'll stick on this slide actually. Oh no, we can go to the next one, Rachel. That's okay. Thanks, sorry. So here's just some examples of the work that we've done, which we publish on our website. I really recommend, if you're interested in this internship, looking at the EOS case studies, as this tells you all about the engagement work that we've done with a company. Now, this internship in particular is going to be focused on climate change. So the climate change ones might be of most interest for applying for the role. And just to go into a little more detail as to the internship itself, climate change is one of the highest priorities for us and our clients. And it's one of the themes that we spend most of our time engaging on with companies. Human rights is another big one, as well as human capital management, which is about people within organizations and the way they work. But climate change is one of those big three focus areas. When we're engaging on climate change, we're asking that companies align with the goals of the Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015 and commits the world to striving to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, and if not, then 2 degrees. So we're asking companies to align with that goal, to develop strategies for setting targets to reduce emissions, and then actually going out and delivering on that and showing to us how they're doing it. How do they intend to do it in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and even later on than that. And our job is to understand, how do those companies compare to other companies in their sector, other companies in their region? Are they lagging behind their peers, or are these a leader that we can use as examples for the other companies that we're speaking to? We also try and understand, is a company Paris aligned? Is a company demonstrating the ambition required to meet that global goal of the Paris Agreement? And for that, you need to understand lots about, how does a sector decarbonize? How does a certain region of the world decarbonize compared to others? What are the economics of climate change? Does it matter if a company pursues hydrogen for decarbonization as opposed to renewable energy? So these are all the sorts of questions that we consider in our role, to then take that into a meeting with a company and to inform the future development of their strategy, we hope. So that's the end goal. This internship would help us with a number of things. One would be the core research on the companies that we're engaging with, helping us answer that question of is a company Paris aligned, and how do they compare with our peers? And then it would be about distilling all of that research that you know about the company and their strategy on climate change into an agenda that a senior engager can take into a meeting, and you'd be there to hopefully support within that meeting, to really watch how that research gets turned into action through the communication that we have with people within the company. And can we go to the final slide, please, Rachel? So what do you need to be successful at EOS? Well, I think that there are a huge number of things that different people can bring to the role, and there's no perfect fit for anyone. So we're sort of excited to consider all of the different skills and competencies that people may bring. But ultimately, you need to be passionate about achieving an impact on climate change and environmental issues. That's what you will be doing day in, day out, is thinking about climate change, how it impacts companies, puts their finances at risk, and what that means to the world too. Working at EOS is all about continued learning and development. I learn something absolutely every day, because none of us are or can be experts in the way that every single company should decarbonize and reduce its emissions. So our research is about working that out, what that means, and how it compares to companies we've spoken to before, and others we may speak to in future. So you've got to love reading, learning, and then using that learning in an actionable way. You need to be dedicated and committed to high quality work. These are very senior meetings with very busy people. There's no room to turn up to a meeting unprepared. So you have to be ready to deliver high quality work that can be used by senior engagers. But I can guarantee that that work will be interesting, or at least I find it interesting. And then very related to that, you should enjoy doing detailed research on anything. In this role, it will be applied to companies. But if you've done detailed research within your degree, then you'll absolutely be able to apply that knowledge and skills to this role. But as well as doing that research, it's important to be able to turn that into the actionable questions that we'll ask the company. So experience that you have in taking lots of information and turning it into some key action points, that will be really helpful too. And then, of course, ultimately, we've got to be able to influence and communicate to companies, colleagues, and clients as well, what it is that we're looking for and how we want companies to change. And their communication skills are absolutely essential. So demonstrating that you're confident to research an idea and then stand by it in a conversation with a senior engager and maybe even a company will be important too. I think that's everything. I can see the chat blowing up, so I'm happy to take questions, unless there's anything I've missed, Rachel, that you think is obvious.
I thought that was really thorough, really clear, and really informative. Thank you.
Agreed, most definitely. Yes, the chat is indeed blowing up. Thank you for that comprehensive overview and breakdown, Owen. Number two, I guess we will start with a more so general question. So, someone was just saying, in terms of law students and legal experience, is there anything in particular that you would be looking for in this internship? So I guess maybe you could talk to if, having a specific degree would help you in this process.
I don't think any specific degree is essential. There are degrees where the content that you will have covered during your studies will be helpful. Economics would be one. Geography may well have touched on this. Science degrees and maybe particularly those related to earth sciences or biology may have touched on some of the areas that are particularly useful for climate change. But I think any degree has the skills and teaches the skills that, when combined with an interest in climate change, can be really valuable here. You mentioned law. I think I may have misheard, but I think you mentioned law. That's absolutely useful as well. Many of the risks that we believe companies face from climate change are legal risks, and so understanding the legal background in relation to environmental law and particularly climate change is absolutely a skill that's valuable to us.
Noted. Thank you for that, Owen. For an internship in ESG, ask Esther, what would stand out to a hiring manager the most in the application?
So it's a really good question. I think here it's about being able to demonstrate that a passion for climate change or the environment or social issues goes beyond caring about them. That's absolutely vital, but it's about also being able to demonstrate that you understand the impacts of these issues on companies and can talk confidently about the way that climate change might impact a company and the way that a company can impact climate change. The end goal for us is ensuring that companies are addressing their climate-related risks. And so you've got to be able to understand both the way that the energy transition and human responses to climate change will impact a company, but it's also useful to understand how will, for example, more extreme weather events impact the way that a company may be able to operate. So yeah, it's going beyond the passion to the, what does this mean for the private sector and finance?
So more so from passion to application, effectively.
Yeah.
Got you. Thank you for that. How much of this role, this is actually quite a good question, from Will, how much of this role involves technical financial skills, or is it mostly client engagement and more of a qualitative role? So I remember when we actually first caught caught up, Owen, I remember you said it would be useful if a candidate did and was comfortable with some element of quantitative analysis. But yeah, maybe you could speak to that a bit more.
So to answer the question directly, there's very little quantitative financial analysis. Our team is less looking at the finances of the company and more looking at these longer term sustainability trends. Having said that, there is great value in being comfortable using quantitative research skills and being comfortable using Microsoft Excel in particular in order to analyze the emissions effectively that a company is producing and compare those to decarbonization pathways. So applicants wouldn't be expected to have done a significant amount of this, or although if you had through your studies, that would be great. But one of our key questions is about how do you compare a company and the emissions it produces to one of the pathways that many are out there for how the world might decarbonize to net zero by 2050. And so being comfortable with numbers and spreadsheets is useful there, but not necessarily essential, because as I think the question sort of picked up on, a lot of our work is qualitative analysis and communication of that.
Yep, which makes absolute sense, right? Because you're engaging with a lot of companies to really influence how they effectively approach climate change. So that makes absolute sense. Thank you for that. Just looking through the questions, a lot of them are more so general in relation to the application process and the program overall. So I'll kind of direct those to you, Rachel, if that's all right.
Please.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess the first one was, can you provide an insight into the application and interview process and how applicants can stand out? So I think Owen's covered that part about how applicants can stand out, but generally speaking, just how the application and interview process is going to run.
Sure. So if you haven't already and you are interested in any of our 4 roles, please go through the Beyond Education link to get registered. If you don't do that as step 1, your recruitment journey ends there. Once you've signed up through that process, Beyond Education will do mini interviews with you just to understand your motivations. And then how it works for our end, we end up with a short list of candidates that are meeting the candidate criteria and also meet the job description requirements. So if you're wondering what that means, have a look at what the role requirements are particularly. So if you're in your final year of university, unfortunately, this program is not for you because we're focusing primarily on people in their first or second year at university. That's not to say we don't want to stay in contact with you. So I noticed a couple of you have added us on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out and connect with us. We'd love to help people on their career journeys wherever we can. But unfortunately, we will be prioritizing people in their first and second year at uni. The reason being for that is that this is a pilot, it's a flagship program for us. We've done lots of internship programs before, but this is the first time we're creating an internship program with the idea of hopefully welcoming you back to a permanent role or on a graduate scheme in 2024. So that's our goal, and that's why we're looking at people that are in their first or second year. Once you've gotten through that process, we've shortlisted our hiring managers. So we've got Owen here, Owen, who make up our hiring manager group. They will be looking through your CVs, your cover letters. So all the things that they've described today about, passion for climate change, showing that attention to detail. This is where you can really illustrate those points. So don't just say, I like climate change or I find it interesting. Show us how, demonstrate how, what research have you done? What did you find particularly interesting about that bit of research? If you've done work experience in that area, fantastic. Really picking up that point that Owen and Stephen just talked about is how you apply that. So that's what we're looking for because it's very easy to say things and not demonstrate them. Once they've gone through that process, we'll then be doing interviews. So you'll have an interview with our hiring managers and someone from our inclusive recruitment board. So that's a group of colleagues internally across the business that have been trained specifically to help reduce bias as part of our recruitment process. And then the final stage will be a case study assessment. So if you're successful and you make it through that interview stage, we'll be looking at reducing our candidate pool down so that we have our final candidates who join us either in the office or virtually, depending on what your travel looks like, to present case study findings. So the details of that will be provided if you're successful in your interview, but the purpose of that final stage is to see how you apply it in practice. So again, similar to your cover letter, we're not just looking at what you say verbally, looking at how you apply that as well. Hopefully that's a helpful summary.
No, that was perfect. Covered everything. I guess the next question, a lot of people just wanted to understand how many internship roles are available and across like what departments. So maybe we can kind of just like run through that again.
Yeah, so we've got 4 roles in total. Obviously, you've heard from Owen Tutt, who's in EOS. So that's one of the roles. We've got Owen Stubbs for the finance GPE team. Tomorrow, we've got another insight session, and that is with Sophie Demare, and that's for our sustainable fixed income role. And then the the fourth role is going to be presented by Mark Sherlock tomorrow, who is representing our US mid-cap team as well. And that's a sort of 2-part role. So you'll be working with the US mid-cap team as well as a wider fixed income team as well. So loads of exposure for that 4th role too.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I see a lot of people are kind of disheartened because there's no opportunities for 3rd years. But what I would say, guys, is I don't know if you remember, but the whole reason why this partnership was even brought about was because of Lukeman. So Lukeman did our asset management explained insight event. And he is effectively an analyst, right? Which was essentially just an above entry level role. So with that being said, there is the potential for roles within that sphere in the future as well. So I definitely say just be engaged and keep in touch and connect with everyone. And yeah, just be sure to keep your eyes out for when opportunities like that do come about.
I'll add, like a lot of asset managers you might see online, we don't always advertise our roles on LinkedIn, which is not great for you guys, great for us because it means we don't end up sifting through loads of CVs because we usually work with recruitment partners like Beyond Education. But for that reason, even more reason for you to connect with professionals like us. You never know what roles are available. So, you know, I can't promise I'll be able to connect with all of you and offer everyone a role, but I can certainly keep you in the loop for any opportunities that come up that you might be suitable for. And they come up at all times of the year.
Most definitely. Yeah, I think the greatest thing that we're ultimately trying to pass on to you guys as well is just insight from these events, right? So you can kind of apply them to your job search, widely speaking as well. So that's kind of definitely the plan. Rachel, I know like it's a bit of early days at the moment, but could you maybe talk through the potential of a graduate scheme off the back of an internship? Because a few people are just asking what that looks like, if that's a thing at the moment.
So that's a tricky question because I can answer that now, but it might look very different by the time you join. Reason being, I'm working with Lukeman and Luca, who's another one of our analysts, to create that program, mostly because I didn't join a graduate program. So I feel that whilst I'm very happy to put it together, I feel that I should get the input of other graduate program attendees. So that's what Luckman and Luca rather. But the graduate program itself would be dedicated to one team. So let's say you're an EOS intern for us this summer. We'd really like to offer you the opportunity to come back, and you'll be with the graduate scheme with EOS working on a higher qualification or a relevant industry qualification. Just so not only are you gaining relevant experience, you're also getting equipped with some skills and some qualifications to support your career goals. The program itself will be not as focused and intense as this. So we won't be getting you to do group projects, but we'll be certainly trying to incorporate social activities throughout so that you maintain that graduate network. We'd also like to partner you with mentors across the business just to make sure you're supported as you progress through your career here.
Perfect. No, thank you for that insight. And of course, like we'll be sure to update you guys as and when there's more news on that, and as and when the plans do develop.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it seems like the questions have kind of died down. Once again, thank you guys so much for turning up to this insight event. I'm going to provide some helpful links as well, just to kind of direct you to applications. Not to scare you guys, but over the weekend there's been about 100 applications, so you need to get your applications in as soon as possible. They're going to be open from now until the 28th of April. So yeah, be sure to kind of get your applications in. Also, if you check our website, the Career Suite should have a number of cover letter templates and CV templates that should help you put your best foot forward in the application process. So be sure to do that. I'm also going to circulate a feedback form as well, so you can let us know how we can make these insight events better for you guys, what you guys want to see out of these insight events. And lastly, a recording of this session along with the presentation will be facilitated with you guys, so be sure to sign up to the website to get the latest drop on that. And then I will just drop in the chat the link, the sign up link for tomorrow's event as well. As Rachel mentioned, it's going to be delving into fixed income and US equities, and those opportunities available there. So be sure to kind of sign up for that so that you are registered. And with that being said, Rachel, do you have any final words and any good biddings for our members before they go?
No, just to say thank you for Owen and Owen. Thank you, Stephen. And I hope to see lots of your names again.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Owens.
Yeah, thanks all for coming. Yeah, hope to see some of you in the future.
Thanks,
Perfect.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.